The birthday surprise asterisk. Jake sat in his room on the top floor of a small old house near the edge of New London City. The lights outside were bright. Flying cars passed through the sky, and robots moved on the street below. He looked at the sky, but felt empty inside. Today was his 17th birthday, but he had no plan, no party, no cake, nothing exciting. His friends had told him to stay home tonight. They said they had a surprise for him, a big one. Jake did not like surprises much, but he smiled and agreed. He always stayed quiet around them. He was the silent kind of person. He liked bookstars and strange things. He did not talk much in class, but he listened to everything. A loud knock came from the front door. He rushed down the stairs and opened it. His 3 friends stood outside wearing big smiles. One of them, Max, held a small black device that looked like a phone. Happy birthday, Jake, Max said with a grin. We got you something very special. What is it? Jake asked, but they did not answer. Instead, Max pressed a button on the device, and a bright blue beam shot into the sky. What did you just do? Jake asked, stepping back. Just wait. Max laughed. This is going to blow your mind. Minutes passed. The sky above turned darker, and something began to appear, a strange glowing light, shaped like a ball. It came down fast like a shooting star. That's it, here it comes, Max said. They all looked up, excited. Jake felt nervous. He stepped back again as the ball landed in the empty yard behind. The house had hit the ground without a sound, and a small pod opened. It was silver smooth and very quiet. Mist poured out from it. A soft light glowed inside. You go open it, bro, Max said. This is your birthday gift. Jake did not want to move, but he walked slowly to the pod. It made a soft humming sound. He reached his hand forward, and the pod clicked open. Inside was a girl. She had pale blue skin, long silver hair, and strange glowing eyes. She looked around quickly and then stared at Jake. She seemed scared. She had chains on her wrists and her dress was torn. Help me, she said in a soft voice. Please don't let them take me back. Jake froze. He looked back at his friends, but they were not laughing anymore. They looked shocked. What the hell is this? Max whispered. I thought it was just a joke. I didn't think it would be real. Who is she? Jake asked. Who did you order? I just pressed a link on the dark website. Max said it said birthday alien prank. It was supposed to be fake. The girl stood up weakly and looked at Jake again. She held his arm tightly. Her hands were shaking. They will find me. They always find me, she said. You don't understand. I am not a gift. I escaped. From where? Jake asked. From the royal ship of Zenter, she said. I am not just any alien. I am the daughter of the last queen. I ran away from them. Max stepped back even more. He looked scared. Now this is bad. This is very bad. We need to call someone. Jake said. Maybe the police, maybe the space guard. No, the girl shouted. Not the guard. They will return me to them. They will erase me. They will take my mind and use me again. Please just hide me just for a while. Jake looked into her glowing eyes and felt something strange, like a soft whisper in his head. She was scared, really scared and honest. He could feel it. Okay, he said slowly. Come with me. Helped her into the garage and closed the door. His friends followed, but stayed silent. Now everyone looked confused. What are we doing? Max asked. We are in serious trouble now. Jake sat on the ground. The girl sat beside him and looked around with wide eyes. My name is Lyra, she said. I was born in the stars. I was never meant to be caught. I used a fake trade route to hide in a pod. I thought I would land in the free zones, but something pulled my pod here. Jake looked at her wrist. There was a small mark like a tattoo. It was glowing softly in gold. What is that? Jake asked. She pulled her sleeve to cover it. It is the mark of Arvian, she whispered, but don't speak of it out loud. Humans destroyed Arvian long ago. They banned the royal bloodline. Then what are you doing here? Jake asked. Before she could answer, they heard a sound in the sky. A strange whirring noise. Jake ran outside and saw a dark ship floating high above. It had no lights, no sound, just a long shadow across the clouds. Lyra ran out behind him. She looked up and her eyes widened. Are here, she said. They found me. Jake turned to her, his heart beating fast. Who are they? She looked at him with tears in her eyes and said, the ones who made me a prisoner in my own galaxy. Asterisk. The night felt heavier than usual as Jake stood in the garage watching the strange girl. Lyra sat quietly on the old metal bench. Her silver hair shimmered in the dim light. Her eyes stared at the floor like she could still hear the sound of that silent ship in the sky above them. His friends had all gone home scared and confused, afraid of what they had done. Max left without saying a word. He just mumbled sorry and disappeared. Into the night, Jake locked the garage and sat beside Lyra, unsure of what to do, unsure of what he had been pulled into. She looked at him and asked softly, "Do you believe in destiny?" He didn't know how to answer, but something in her voice felt too real, too heavy, too honest. "My people are gone," she said slowly. "The humans came many years ago and took everything. They came with peace signs and false gifts, but they wanted power. Our planet, Arvian, was full of ancient technology hidden from time, guarded by the royal family. I was born into that family." Jake listened quietly as Lyra touched the golden mark on her wrist. It started glowing faintly, like it was alive. "My mother, the queen, tried to resist, but the humans were smarter. They used lies to divide our people, and soon Arvian fell. They called it a diplomatic merger, but it was just another kind of war. They erased our culture. They took our libraries, our science, even our stars, and when the people began to ask questions, they sent silence, ships, and erased whole cities. I was only 10 when I was taken," she continued. "They kept me on a research station in orbit above Earth. They studied my DNA. They wanted to understand how we could speak to machines with our minds, how our energy could power systems no human could control. They called it science, but it was slavery." Jake felt something twist inside him. His father was part of the human fleet. He grew up thinking the fleet brought peace across the stars. But now this girl sitting beside him with fear in her voice was telling a different story. "I ran away," Lyra said. "I tricked one of the guards and stole an escape pod. I programmed it to fly to the free zone on Mars, where the rebel colonies still protect aliens, but something went wrong and I ended up here." Jake leaned back and looked up at the garage roof, as if he could see through it into the sky beyond. "What do they want from you?" he asked. Lyra's eyes glowed softly. "They want me because I am the last link to the core. It is an ancient Arvian structure buried deep in space. It holds a network that can control minds, open gates, and even rewrite memories. No one can use it without royal DNA, and I am the last one who carries it." Looked at her in shock. "You mean like a weapon?" "Not just a weapon," Lyra whispered. "It is power itself." Suddenly, a sharp noise filled the air, a beeping sound from Jake's house above the garage. It was his father's old alert system. Something had entered Earth's upper orbit, something unregistered and unauthorized. "They are here," Lyra said, standing quickly, her face pale. Jake followed her outside and looked at the sky. A black shape moved across the clouds. No lights, no sound, just a shadow crawling slowly. "That is not a government ship," Jake said quietly. "I've never seen one like that. It's not human." Lyra replied, "It is a bounty hunter ship, one of the best. They use old tech mixed with Arvian parts, hard to trace, impossible to stop." "How did they find you so fast?" "They must have tracked the pod, or maybe someone reported me." She looked at Jake, her eyes serious. "We have to go now, or I will be caught again, and this time they won't just take me back. They will rip my memory apart to find the core." Jake ran back into the garage. He grabbed an old bag and threw in a water pack, some food bars, and his father's emergency tablet. "Come with me," he said. "We need to hide somewhere no one knows. I used to help my dad in the airfield. Maybe we can find a ship." Lyra nodded and followed him out the back gate. As the shadow in the sky grew closer, they ran through alleys and across dark streets. The city lights now felt cold and distant, like they belonged to someone else. Jake's heart pounded. He didn't know where this was going, but he knew he couldn't leave her alone. He didn't understand everything, but he believed her, and that was enough. For now, behind them a soft humming sound started to rise, something mechanical, something watching. The hunter had arrived. The cold air bit at Jake's face as he and Lyra ran across the dark side of the city. The streetlights above flickered like they were watching everything below. Their shadows stretched behind them, long and sharp like ghosts chasing in silence. Mind raced faster than his feet. Every turn felt like a trap. Every open space felt like danger. He did not know where to go, not really, but his father once showed him a place, a forgotten hangar near the edge of the old base where test shuttles were stored and left to rust. He hoped no one would remember that place, not even the security drones. Lyra moved like wind beside him, light, but full of focus. Her eyes darted around her hands, sometimes touched the walls as if she could hear the vibrations. Through metal her breath came fast, but her steps never stopped. They reached the fence behind the fuel depot where the electric barriers were dead for years. Jake pulled it aside, and they slipped through into a narrow path between buildings. One wrong move and they would be seen, one wrong sound, and the hunter would find them. Behind them, far above in the sky, the shadow ship circled slow and steady. It did not need speed, it had already marked its prey. Jake opened the small control panel near the storage door and typed a code. The screen blinked red, then green. The door hissed open with a low groan, revealing the quiet dark inside the hangar. Dust covered everything. Old shuttle pods lined the floor like forgotten bones. Some still had power cores, others were just empty shells. Jake pointed to one in the far corner. It was silver with blue markings, shaped like a bird. Its name was written on the side in faded letters. Astra 7. That one still works, he said. I saw Dad fix it once. It's slow, but it can fly. They ran to the shuttle and opened the hatch. Jake jumped in and began flipping switches, hoping the memory of his father's voice would guide him. The lights inside blinked weakly, then held steady. Systems booting in old Earth standard language. Lyra stepped inside and touched the wall near the controls. Her eyes closed for a second and then opened fast. The ship still remembers its last route, she said. It has deep memory. Can you fly it? Jake asked. No, but I can help you do it, she replied. Your hands, my mind together. Suddenly the sky above shook with a low sound like a thunder with no storm. They both turned to the hangar roof as pieces of dust fell from the ceiling. The hunter ship was close now, maybe right above them, maybe waiting. Hurry, Jake said as he pushed the throttle. The ship responded slowly with a soft hum rising. The screen blinked to life, and the engines powered up. Lyra sat beside him and placed her hand over a small glowing panel. Her fingers moved gently, and the ship seemed to listen to her. The lights grew brighter, and the system cleared. The airlock opened, and the runway lit up with blue lines. They were ready. The hunter knows we are here, Lyra said, her voice calm, but her eyes full of fear. We must fly now. Jake pressed the launch button, and the ship began to rise, shaking at first, but then smooth. They broke through the hangar roof with a burst of speed, pieces of metal flying in every direction. Alarms screamed behind them as they shot into the sky above them. The black ship moved like a shadow wolf, its sharp edges reflecting nothing, its weapons locked and ready. Hold tight, Lyra said, and reached into a small metal box near her seat. She pulled out a silver crystal. It glowed with a soft pulse. Then she placed it into a slot near the control board, and the ship jumped. A bright light exploded around them, and the stars bent sideways. The hunter ship fired, but missed as the Astra 7 vanished into hyperspace, leaving a trail of broken space behind. Inside the ship, silence filled the cabin, both of them breathing hard. The stars now stretched long around them like white rivers across a dark ocean. Where are we? Jake asked. Far enough for now, Lyra said, but not safe. They will follow. They always do. He looked at her, the way her silver hair floated in the soft ship light, the way her eyes never stopped watching everything, and the way her hands still glowed from touching the controls. What are you really? Jake asked. Lyra looked at him, and then at her own hand. She turned it palm up, and the gold mark on her wrist shimmered like fire underwater. I am not just a girl, not just a princess, she said. I am the last voice of my people, the last code, the last key. And what does that mean? Jake asked again. It means the future of everything is now running away with you in an old shuttle built for training, and I do not know where we go next, but I know they will never stop looking for me. Asterisk. The stars moved slowly outside the window, like rivers of light flowing through a black sea as the small shuttle Astra 7 drifted across empty space, its engines resting after the long hyperspace jump. The silence inside was deep, like the quiet that comes after a storm. Jake sat near the front, looking at the control screen while Lyra stood by the side panel tracing her finger over an old star map. Her eyes were half closed as if she was trying to listen to something far away. Something hidden beyond the noise of machines. Where are we? Jake asked, not sure if he was ready to hear the answer. We are near the dead zone. Lyra replied, her voice soft and strange, like she was not really speaking to him. This place was once part of the Arvian Path, a trade route before the Empire burned. If from the maps, why come here? Jake asked again. Because they will not follow us here. Lyra said, because even the hunters are afraid of what sleeps in this part of space. She reached out and pressed her hand against a black panel near the back of the ship. It lit up slowly with symbols that looked more like art than writing, and a small map appeared, showing a broken station floating in space. A place left to time and silence. That is Station Cairo, she said, the last memory vault of my people. It may hold answers or warnings or both, and I need to hear them before they are lost forever. Jake nodded, not sure what else to say. His heart still raced with the fear from Earth, with the sound of the hunter ship still echoing in his mind, but something inside him now burned with curiosity, with something he could not name. They guided the shuttle toward the station, and soon the shape of it appeared outside the window, twisted and broken like a metal flower left to rot in space. Pieces floating around it like petals torn by wind. Lyra stood at the airlock door. As it opened, the stale air of the station rushing in, she stepped forward, her face calm, her movements slow, like someone walking into the past. Jake followed close behind, his flashlight cutting through the dark inside. Cables hung from the ceiling, walls were cracked, and screens blinked with fading light. But the deeper they walked, the warmer the air became, as if something inside the station still breathed. They entered a chamber filled with mirrors, and in the center stood a single chair, shaped like a crescent moon. It was made of crystal and light, and it pulsed as Lyra walked closer. This is the memory throne, she said. Only a royal may sit here. It holds the voices of the past. It shows the truth, if the truth is ready to be seen. She sat, and the room changed. Light flowed from the chair across the floor, up the walls, until the entire space was filled with images, voices, music, and sound. Jake watched as the story of Arvian unfolded before him, not in words, but in living pictures. The great cities floating in the sky, the glowing rivers, the people singing in harmony with machines that danced like birds of light. He saw the human ships arrive with flags of peace and hands of steel. He saw how they offered help but demanded control, how they smiled while drawing lines across the stars. He saw Lyra as a child taken from her palace, dressed in white and gold, placed into a cold lab, floating high above Earth while machines whispered in her ears. He saw the queen, her mother, hiding the last codes in Lyra's blood, sending her away in secret, with a kiss on her forehead and tears in her eyes. The images faded, and the room went dark again. Lyra sat still, her hands shaking, her eyes wide with memory. Jake walked to her slowly and placed a hand on her shoulder, not sure if it would help, but needing to do something. You know, she said in a low voice, I am not just running. I am carrying a key that can unlock power beyond anything this galaxy has ever known, and they will do anything to take it from me. Jake looked at her, his thoughts spinning faster than any ship he had ever seen. And what are you going to do with that power? He asked. She looked up at him, her eyes full of something he could not name. Maybe fear, maybe hope, maybe both, and said, I do not know yet, but I do know I cannot do it alone. Ship's alarm suddenly broke the silence, red lights flashing on the screen. Something is coming, Jake. Something big. Lyra stood up fast and looked at the screen, then back at the memory chair. The throne now dark again. They found us. No, Jake said, they followed us into the one place they fear. Then let them come, Lyra said, her voice calm, now stronger than before, because I have remembered who I am, and this time I will not run. The red light blinked across the dark control panel as Jake and Lyra stood still inside the memory chamber. The silence around them filled with tension, thicker than the air. The station vibrated with a low hum that rose slowly like a sleeping giant. Waking up from a long dream, Jake rushed to the console and read the incoming signal. Something was approaching fast, not one ship, but three, moving in a formation. Designed for ambush. Lyra stepped closer, her hands trembling, not with fear, but something else, something deeper, a sense of recognition, a memory she had hoped to forget. That code is human, she whispered. That signal belongs to Earth's fleet. Jake's eyes widened, his voice heavy with disbelief. How did they know where we were? How did they even know about this place? Lyra did not answer, not with words. She turned and walked back to the memory throne, placed her hand against it, and closed her eyes. Chair flickered and showed a flashing symbol, a warning, an echo from the past repeating. A message in broken code. Trust will be your end. Jake looked at the message, then at Lyra, and for the first time a seed of doubt touched his mind. He thought of his friends back home, the ones who gave him the pod, the ones who ran away in fear, except one Max, who had access to dark web signals. Max, who had once shown him how to connect to secret networks. Max, who always wanted to be more than just a kid on Earth. Lyra opened her eyes slowly and whispered, "We were betrayed." Jake stepped back as the pieces fit together in his mind. Max had been quiet, too quiet after everything, and when they ran from Earth, Max had vanished without saying a word. The cause? Ships outside grew closer, their signal stronger, the lead vessel now broadcasting an open message. "This is Fleet Operative Max speaking. Stand down and prepare for extraction. The Fugitive is property of Earth Dominion. Any resistance will be met with force." Jake felt his heart crack, not just with fear, but with betrayal, with the weight of trust broken by someone he called friend. Lyra walked to him slowly, her voice calm like the stars above. "Still, you have a choice. You can give me to them and walk away, or you can come with me and find the core." Jake did not speak right away, his thoughts spinning like broken gears, but when he looked at her eyes glowing faintly in the low light, he knew the answer. He stepped forward and nodded. "We go to the core." They rushed back to the shuttle as the outer shields of the station began to crack under pressure, the enemy ships now circling like wolves around weak prey. The Astra 7 roared to life, its engines still warm from before, its wings wide and ready. As Lyra took her seat and Jake followed, punching in new coordinates pulled from the memory throne, the ship jumped forward, breaking through the collapsing gate. Just as a laser blast tore through the space behind them, the screen flashing bright as alarms screamed and metal shook, they flew through the dark side of the dead zone, dodging fallen satellites and old war debris, until finally they reached a place where space itself looked wrong, twisted like a whirlpool of stars. "That is the gate to the core," Lyra said. "It only opens for those with the mark." She placed her hand over the ship's heart, a crystal panel hidden under layers of steel, and with a soft glow the stars bent, and the gate opened like a door made of shadows. They entered and everything changed inside the core. There was no gravity, no up or down, only light and shapes floating through the air like thoughts made visible. The chamber pulsed with energy, the walls moving like water. Jake stared in awe as machines old as time responded to Lyra's presence. Lights followed her steps, signals whispered her name. Data streams wrapped around her like wind. She walked to the center where a tall pillar rose, glowing with thousands of symbols, all waiting, all watching. She touched it, and the chamber spoke not with voice, but with memory. It showed her the future Earth. Fleets spreading across stars, aliens forced into silence, weapons built from stolen minds. Then it showed her two paths, one of war, one of peace. Behind them, the ship's alert system came to life. The enemy had found a way through the gate. "They have followed us even here," Jake said. "Then this is the moment," Lyra whispered. "The core awaits my decision." Jake looked at her and saw the weight on her shoulders, the choice of an entire galaxy in her hands, and for the first time he saw not just a runaway princess, but a leader behind them. The sound of metal breaking echoed through the chamber. Footsteps of soldiers getting closer. Lyra closed her eyes and placed both hands on the pillar. The light rose, the core awakened, and the air trembled. "This will not be the end," she said. "This will be the beginning." The light from the core rose higher around Lyra as the chamber filled with waves of energy that moved like living wind. The machines above began to shift, their shapes twisting and turning like ancient guardians waking after a long sleep. The symbols on the walls danced in rhythm with her breath, each one glowing brighter with every passing second. Jake stood behind her, watching everything as the core responded to her presence, his heart pounding not just from the fear of what might happen, but from something else, a feeling growing stronger with every choice they made together. Behind them, the sound of boots hitting metal echoed through the entrance. Soldiers moved in with precision, black armor shining under the strange light. Their weapons raised their orders. Clear, take the girl alive, eliminate the boy, secure the core at all costs. Jake moved to shield Lyra, but she raised her hand, and the soldiers froze, not by force, not by fear, but by confusion as the core's light reached them too, and their suits began to fail. Signals scrambled, weapons turned off as if the core itself refused violence within its heart. A voice rose from the ceiling, not human, not machine. It was the voice of the core itself, ancient, calm, and powerful. You stand at the edge of balance, spoke the voice, one born of broken stars and one born of stolen light. Lyra looked up, her voice steady. I do not seek destruction. I seek truth. I seek choice. Choose, child of Arvian, choose with eyes open and heart clear, for this choice shapes more than fate. It writes the language of future skies. Lyra turned to Jake, her face full of sorrow and strength. The core offers me the weapon, the ability to silence Earth's fleets, to wipe their code from every system, to erase their hold from the galaxy. With one single breath, Jake looked into her eyes and asked, would that make you free? Lyra did not answer right away. Instead, she walked forward past the soldiers, who now stood in silence, as if even they were waiting for her answer. She stepped onto a glowing circle at the center of the chamber, where the core opened like a flower, revealing a crystal sphere floating in the air. Inside it, pulses of memory danced. Voices from her people, laughter from a world that no longer lived, and the final whisper of her mother, peace is not surrender, my daughter. It is the hardest path for the strongest soul. Lyra reached for the sphere, and the core lit up, showing two paths. Again, the first, a storm of fire, cities burning, fleets falling, stars vanishing in screams. The second, a slower path, voices speaking together, systems rebuilt by both hands, bridges made not broken. She turned to Jake and asked, would you help me build a galaxy that no longer fears itself? Jake stepped forward and placed his hand over hers. Without a word, the core accepted their touch and began to transform itself. Beams of light burst through the chamber, not with pain but with warmth. Messages sent across the stars to every fleet, every system, every hidden world, every rebel base, and every soldier waiting for command. The message was simple and clear. The core is no longer a weapon. It is a voice, and it speaks for peace. Outside the chamber, the ships orbiting the station froze, unable to fire, unable to act, as their systems received the core's signal, a new command, one that did not erase, but reprogram, a new code that locked out all weapons that targeted life. Fleet Commander Orion stood aboard the lead ship, his face cold, as he watched his control panel shut down. His fleet held in the hands of a girl he once called a test subject. He shouted orders, but no one could hear him, the silence of peace louder than all his war cries inside the core. Lyra fell to her knees, not from pain, but from the release of pressure, the weight of her bloodline, her past, her burden, now shared by something larger than herself. Jake knelt beside her, placed his arm around her shoulders, and whispered, you did it. You really did it. She looked up at him, tears glowing like stars, and said, no, we did it together. Soldiers who once marched with weapons now stood down, lowering their arms, looking around, unsure what to believe, unsure what they were. Now that the war was gone, Lyra stood again slowly, her strength returning not from the core but from within. This place must remain open, she said, to be more than legend, to be more than a throne. It must become a bridge where truth walks without chains. Jake nodded and looked at the chamber walls, now filled with light and memory, with possibility. As they stepped out into the new silence of the galaxy, the stars outside began to shine a little brighter, and the future no longer felt like a cage but like a choice. The stars above shimmered in silence as the old station floated gently through the edge of forgotten space, its metal walls no longer cold, its chambers No longer filled with shadows, but with light, with memory, with life slowly returning to a place once buried by time and war. Jake stood on the observation deck, his hands resting against the glass, watching the fleet ships beyond the core, now scattered like leaves on still water. No longer enemies, no longer hunters, just lost vessels waiting for new purpose. Beside him, Lyra walked quietly, her feet almost floating over the polished floor, her silver hair now tied back, her eyes calm but deep like the sea before a storm, her breath slow as if she had waited lifetimes just to be still for one moment. They spoke no words at first, for the silence between them said more than any sentence could say. It held the battles they had survived, the choices they had made, and the path they were now standing on. He turned to her and asked the question that lived in the back of his mind since the core opened, since the light spoke, since peace became possible. Will you go back to Arvianj? Looked at him, her eyes soft and warm, and said, there is no Arvian left, not as it was, but maybe one day it can live again, not as a planet but as an idea. Then where will you go? Jake asked. Lyra stepped closer and placed her hand on the window, pointing toward a small blue planet in the distance. Not Earth, not home, not known, just a place waiting for its name. I will stay near the core, she said. I will build here, not with walls, not with power, but with truth. This place will become a council, a school, a shelter for every voice that was silenced, every mind that was used, every world that was forgotten. And I want you to help me do it. Jake looked down for a moment, his thoughts racing, his old life flashing across his eyes. His small room on Earth, his books, his quiet world now feeling like a different lifetime. I do not know how to build a future, he said. Neither do I, Lyra replied, but we will learn, and we will not be alone. Voices filled the main hall below, people from the fleet who removed their helmets, who laid down their rifles, who stepped forward, not as soldiers, but as listeners. Some were human, some were not. Some once hunted Lyra and now asked for her guidance. The core pulsed gently above them, a soft rhythm like a heartbeat echoing through the metal. The crystal throne now open to all who carried truth, not just blood, not just code. Jake and Lyra walked down together, their steps slow but sure. The crowd parted like waves, making space not for royalty, not for heroes, but for something. Lyra raised her hand and the chamber lights dimmed, leaving only the glow of the core and the eyes of those who had come to hear her speak. I was once a prisoner, she said. My mind was taken, my path was stolen, my name was used as a weapon, but I am not broken. I am still here, and so are you. We cannot change the past, but we can choose how it ends. We can build something beyond war, beyond fear, a galaxy where power does not come from force, but from understanding, from connection, from memory. If you believe that is possible, then stay with me. And if you do not believe yet, then stay anyway, and let us show you. No one cheered, no one clapped, but something stronger passed through the hall, a quiet promise, a shared breath, a moment where strangers became something more. Later, as the stars turned and the ships realigned and the galaxy whispered the first song of peace in 1,000 years, Jake and Lyra stood once more at the edge of the viewing deck. Do you miss it? Jake asked quietly. Miss what? Lyra replied. Earth, he said. Your home, mine, the place before all this. She smiled, not a royal smile, not a distant smile, just one born from truth. Sometimes I do, she said, but home is not always where you begin. Sometimes it is where you choose to stay. Jake nodded and looked out into the endless dark, no longer afraid of what it held, no longer wondering if he belonged somewhere else. The stars were not distant anymore. They were close, like memories, like chances waiting to be taken. And as the core glowed behind them, as new voices arrived seeking answers, as old enemies became quiet friends, the galaxy began to heal, not with fire, not with command, but with the courage of one runaway girl and the boy who chose to believe in her. Together, they wrote the first page of a future no one had dared to imagine.